Manchester United are back. It is as simple as that. Erik ten Hag has completely revived a team that were half dead last season under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Previous managers the same. And as much as we might have said that Manchester United were a sleeping giant, winning silverware is key. You know that very often I go for the metrics. You know that very often I want to go through all the underlying numbers, but you can't underestimate the psychological impact of winning a trophy. Especially a trophy which validates the work that you've done, which validates the new manager, which gives you a moment in a brand new stadium, in a brand new place, against a team that is definitely going to be one of your rivals in the next few years and sets up some form of narrative in the next couple of years. There are huge markers that you must acknowledge, and wider fan bases must also acknowledge. Now, I said it on a video earlier this week, and I haven't been quiet about it all season. There were doubts over what Erik ten Hag's impact would be because of the nature of the squad. But he hasn't added an awful lot to this team. He has spent, he spent a serious amount of cash in relation to some lower half Premier League teams, but he individually hasn't even spent all that much as a manager so far, though he has spent cash. Obviously, Casemiro, Antony, those were the two biggest signings, should we say. But beyond that, he's empowered what I would call previously sleeping leaders in the team. And he's added a spine to Manchester United, which you could argue is pre-existing, but with just one or two tweaks, one or two more players coming in, your Casemiros, your all these kind of guys, you see a huge difference in the team. Varane suddenly has a partner in Martinez. There is a centre-back partnership, Unit A, along with David De Gea, who also seems to be reinvigorated under that and rated in a slightly different way. You then have, obviously, units on either side as well. You've got Luke Shaw and Martinez, and then you've got, well, insert Dalot or Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and then Varane the other side. Huge for Manchester United. That's a back line which looks like a unit. Sitting in front of that, you've obviously got, well, the linchpin of the side at the moment, the guy who links everything together, and someone who should probably be nominated for one of the players of the season. Maybe if not because Manchester United haven't necessarily done the business like at the very top of the league, but because this team has been revived so well, and because they've been revived so dramatically in so many different ways, Casemiro just deserves plaudits. In fact, he's definitely in anyone's team of the season, and he's most probably up there for PFA Player of the Season. Okay, fine. We can debate that later. Alongside him, you got Fred. Fred was hugely maligned earlier. Hugely maligned. Now what? Fred probably is one of those players that you can see Erik ten Hag maybe updating, maybe upgrading in some way in the off-season. But in the meantime, he becomes a bit of a cult hero, maybe an Emre Can type figure that Liverpool had just a couple of years ago as well, and possibly even a squad player that would be happy to be rotated in and out. It's just interesting. Then in front of that, obviously you've got Bruno Fernandes, someone who I think still has a tendency to lose his head every now and again, but has become more of a leader in this Manchester United side after, guess what? Getting rid of the other leader in the side, Cristiano Ronaldo, someone who we knew wasn't the influence that Manchester United needed at that time, despite being one of the all-time great footballers. Alongside that, Marcus Rashford is now a leader. We always knew he had that in him, and we always knew there was a sleeping element to that. And then Antony, well, he's not your Nani, he's not your Cristiano Ronaldo, but he is an audacious winger who you know is going to frustrate the opposition. He is reliable in that sense. And then, of course, up front, you've got someone who I think actually had one of the better cup finals today, Wout Weghorst. Got in some great shots, got in some great movement, led a lot of the counter-attacks, was really good in terms of his positioning and giving space for the likes of Rashford and Antony to run into. And I really think that Wout Weghorst could be one of those integral Manchester United squad players over the next few years who proves to be not only a cult hero because of where he was signed and obviously the price for which he was signed, but also because of what he does out on the field. This isn't a sympathy vote for Wout Weghorst. Wout Weghorst deserves a Manchester United space. So, whilst we're busy watching Manchester United lift a cup, which actually, by the way, feels meaningful, think about what Jose Mourinho did, think about what all these other managers have done over the last few years. Whatever you've won in that period, whatever counts as some sort of meaningful experience for Manchester United fans, why does this cup, the cup which so many people write off and just say, hey, what is it, who even cares, is so meaningful to Manchester United? Don't let other fans take that moment away from you, Manchester United fans. Don't let other fans put this down. Because in years to come, you will look back on this moment, this Wembley Cup final, as a turning point for Manchester United. Or at least part of that time as a turning point, right? Do you know why? Because you will look at players who are celebrating in that time, you will look at players who have gone on to win more things, gone on to challenge again, gone on to be great to the club, and you'll be grateful that you had this humble moment with these players. It's not about going just to the Champions League final and winning those big moments. What people who love the Fergie era will tell you is that they loved winning the FA Cup. They loved winning whatever it was that felt traditional about this team. They loved the smaller moments. And you know what? Manchester United are a very good team at extolling those smaller moments, at making those little things that so many other people write off as, oh, it's just this, it's just that, a huge part of the fabric of what builds up this side. And you could see what it meant to the fans today. Of course, half that stadium was that black and white, like, I think it was, yeah, it was all like just one big black and white wall, right? The other half was red. Weirdly, I know the focus was on Newcastle United. I know the focus was on the upset in the cup final. But look at what it means to those players. They're not just wandering around as if, hey, this is just another trophy. They're wandering around saying, this means something. This is probably one of the smallest trophies that Casemiro has won in his career. Same with Varane. The same for so many other people who probably have just gone, oh yeah, it's the League Cup. Liverpool won it last season and were disappointed to have won it last season. So it's not about the size of the cup at that time. It's not about adding something to the silverware of Manchester United. This is a meaningful piece of punctuating silverware that Manchester United can go, that was a line in the sand. This marks the next generation. Spending in the previous era, sure. Disappointment under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, sure. Lots of people saying that Manchester United should have been in this position in the first place. Of course. But look at them now. Look at what it means to these players. Sure, a moment ago I was talking about some of those maligned guys. Next season you probably won't see Harry Maguire play as much, if at all, because he might be in another shirt. You probably won't see Fred play as much, if at all, because he may be in another shirt. They're bringing in more players who look in the mould, at least in the mould, of Erik ten Hag. And what is Erik ten Hag exactly doing at Manchester United? Well, I can kind of break that down a little bit as well. He has changed the mentality, the element of belief that he has given this side. In the same way, by the way, as Eddie Howe has given this side belief as well. Brilliant in technically moving the team forward, bringing in the technical practices that mean that the team can go out there and do this kind of stuff. And it has been noticed. But he's also brought in Erik ten Hag football. Now, some of it was more pragmatic. Earlier on in the season, he was definitely trying to be more pragmatic. And it has put together a form run which makes them the most formed team in the league since the second week of the Premier League. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Now, Manchester United might, they might malign the fact that, they had a couple of poor results in there. They weren't quite sure who was in the squad, all these kind of things. I think that if you look at Manchester United, you can't deny that next season there has to be a title run. There has to be a run not for the Champions League necessarily, but there has to be a deep run into the Champions League. That's going to show you the difference between what the players feel this season and what the players feel next season. And by the way, if you are one of those players who's on your way out, that can be such a harmful thing to a squad so often. That's why Erik ten Hag dealt with short shrift with Cristiano Ronaldo. These other players who are possibly on their way out, look at Harry Maguire marching around the side of the pitch as if he's just won the Champions League final. He knows that these are great memories that he'll share with Manchester United fans. Look how much it means to Fred. Look how much it means to Bruno. Look how much it means to, insert any of the names here. You can see the difference in this Manchester United squad from just one season of different play. That's impressive. On top of that, of course, there are some players in there where there are weak links, all right? And that Manchester United had to cover for some of those today. I felt that Dalot early on putting himself around a little bit definitely didn't serve them very well. You could tell that Alan St-Maximin wanted to just go at him and go at him. You could tell that when the likes of, say, Fred also got a yellow card, they were a little bit worried about that. You could also tell that when Casemiro got a yellow card, that was quite worrying. There are lots of different moments where you're sort of like, this team was willing to put themselves around, share the cards around in the cup final, just to get it over the line. Newcastle ended the game with 2 yellow cards. Manchester United are now doing what they did in the Sir Alex Ferguson era of doing what is necessary. It's no longer about the whole, we're doing it the Mourinho way, we're doing it the Van Gaal way, we're doing it this different. This is evoking memories of what Ferguson did. This is doing something which previous managers failed to do and form a continuation of the greatness of Manchester United in that time, rather than, oh, the greatness is over, now we need to reawaken that in some different way. That's what's interesting about this Manchester United side right now. So, yeah, we can talk about when they get up front, these attacking patterns. We can talk about how Manchester United are counter-attacking quite a lot, how Newcastle had a lot of the ball, how Newcastle played better in the game. But Manchester United did what was necessary. And you know what? Erik ten Hag has done that so much this season. So often, the other team feel like they've played better than they should have played, and therefore they should deserve something else. They feel like they've been counter-managed by Erik ten Hag in such a way that it completely undermines the team. It undermines their belief for the opposition players. It undermines everything that side had built up for that week. Manchester United are suddenly not pleasant to play anymore. It's true. And do you know the weirdest thing? They didn't care today about, whether Newcastle United had the fairy tale with them. They didn't care whether Newcastle United are on the come up. They literally just went out there and did exactly what was necessary and then shut the game down. And I get it. I think they lived a charmed life at some points. There were some moments where David De Gea had to make some really good saves. There were some moments where a couple of people had to dive in. And like I said, they shared those yellow cards around. But again, they did what was necessary. It remind you of Sir Alex Ferguson at all? Remind you of anyone else in this management time? So yeah, this is just the beginning. This counts as the beginning for Manchester United. And they're kind of lucky because actually the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup and all these different cups have kind of been getting a little upgrade over the last few years. It makes them feel a little more prestigious. They kind of lost some of that over the last few years. I was looking at the lighting. I was looking at the way this was shot over the last few days. It's getting better, isn't it? And for that reason, Manchester United fans should feel happy in this moment. For me, man of the match, I mean, it goes to Casemiro again. He's just player of the season for Manchester United because of what he's done for this side. I also, by the way, really, really enjoyed when Sabitzer came on. I think Sabitzer has become a really interesting sub. I enjoy they brought Scott McTominay on. I love that Aaron Wan-Bissaka just got that little run out there when Dalot got the card and therefore had to go off. And I also love that they also got Harry Maguire on. If anything, it shows that Erik ten Hag has got the full investment of even the most fringe players within this team. And that is what this cup represents. Representation of the fringe at Manchester United, and how Erik ten Hag has come in so quickly, put over his ideas, given them an identity, moved the club forward, and not dwelled on the politics. I'm sure there are criticisms. I'm sure there are going to be negatives. I'm sure that people can find negatives in anything that you do in football. But today, celebrate. I'll see you guys in a future video when we'll probably talk a little bit more about Manchester United. Much love.